Hey everybody, this is Joe.
And this is Sam.
We are Subterranean Annihilation.
And we are unearthing underground filth. Hey everybody, this is Sam with Subterranean Annihilation. Today I get to interview Hasan from Ripping Headaches out of DC, Baltimore area. Thank you for being on our channel.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. Happy to be here.
I'm a big fan of your promotion work. Every one of your shows I've been to was awesome. So I'm excited to get to pick your brain for a little bit.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I hope I can answer your questions to the best of my ability.
So Ripping Headaches is a perfect name for a booking company and a good fucking song. And I love how your logo looks like the Voivod logo.
Yeah. I love Voivod. I was looking for a name to kind of put some legitimacy to my promotions and the shows that I book. So that song has always stuck out to me, and I just thought that was a cool phrase to use for a name of a promotion company. And it actually goes back to, it's been used before for a fanzine from the 80s and 90s. There's a Ripping Headaches fanzine that covered a lot of extreme metal. And I always thought that was a cool name. So kind of just carrying on the torch of using that name and influence. And a buddy of mine who's really good at illustrating and drawing up logos, he just drew up a Ripping Headaches logo just out of his own, personal enjoyment. And I thought it looked sick, and I just decided to use it.
That's awesome, man. Who was it?
So the guy who did that logo was James Robinson. I don't know if you know him. He comes to a lot of shows. He's pretty active in the Virginia, DC metal scene.
I gotcha. Yeah, you see that logo, and you instantly, that would attract people that are into any kind of like old school thrash or death metal. Extreme metal. You gotta have a love for Voivod,
Yeah, no, I think everyone knows Voivod. So when they see that logo, they recognize it, and they know that song name. And yeah, it definitely. I definitely have a lot of people that come up to me. A lot of older heads usually who are like, "Oh man, fucking Voivod, great band," and that's awesome that you use one of their song titles and your logo looks just like the Voivod logo. And I've shown it to Away from Voivod, who does all the artwork for Voivod, and he loved it. He got a kick out of it.
Dude, that's awesome. All right, so getting right into it, what album got you into extreme music?
Well, so for me, starting out with music, there was always music in my house. My parents listened to a lot of Indian and South Asian and Bollywood music, so I always had that around the house. And growing up, I, of course, listened to a lot of top 40 stuff, whatever kids were listening to in school. But it really began because I had an older cousin who was into a lot of thrash metal and hardcore and punk, and he introduced me to bands like Metallica and Slayer. From there, I just wanted to hear more and more extreme stuff, any bands that could possibly top that. But honestly, I think Demolich's Nutspithe album, when I heard that my senior year of high school, that kind of blew my mind, and that kind of opened the gates to more weird and odd death metal.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely an eye-opening album. I wasn't cool enough to know that in high school, but when I heard it, it was completely mind-blowing.
Yeah, and before that, I was listening to stuff Deicide, Morbid Angel, kind of the building blocks of early death metal.
Hell yeah.
But it was definitely a trip seeing, this whole different world of extreme death metal from other parts of the world. And I've told Auntie Bowman from Demolich that, when I first heard that album, it kind of scared the shit out of me because it was just out there. It didn't sound anything like I've heard before. And he was really stoked to hear that. And I think that's a lot of people's first interpretations of that album. It sounds otherworldly.
So how did you get your start booking shows?
Basically, I started going to shows a lot when I was 16, 17, and there are a lot of bands that I wanted to see play the Baltimore area because I grew up in Baltimore going to shows, and I was always wondering why a lot of bands would skip over Baltimore and DC. And this was back in the age of like when Facebook was like first starting out. There was MySpace, and I would reach out to bands. I would just message them and be like, hey, I really like you guys. Are you guys gonna tour out, maybe play Baltimore, DC? I'd love to see you guys. And I would either get one of two responses, bands telling me, we had a bad experience in Baltimore, the show wasn't good, the promoters sucked, or, they just weren't feeling it, or they just didn't even think of possibly touring through Baltimore or DC because they thought there wasn't a scene there. So I started going to shows enough, meeting enough people, meeting people that work at venues or run sound, or people that play in like local bands that, I thought, okay, maybe, I could take a hand at this, try it out, just to try to get bands that I really enjoy or that I know other people in the scene enjoy and want to see. And it started small, and from there, like, more bands would tell other bands, like, hey, yeah, if you want to play Baltimore, hit this guy up. Or I would just message bands, like, based off demos or albums that I've heard, and just try to reach out to them and let them know, like, hey, there is a scene here, and if you need help with the show, I'd be happy to help.
Yeah, that's awesome. I definitely hear you about bands like skipping over certain areas, because like Virginia is a huge skip over state, and I feel like a lot of bands didn't even know that we exist, really, that there's a scene here. So I definitely hear that. And yeah, just hitting people up, because when I think of Baltimore now or DC now, I think of like a huge metal punk scene, because every show that I've been to up there was fucking awesome. So, I wasn't around, back in the day, but, now it seems like it's a really successful area.
Yeah, and it kind of goes in waves. I mean, Baltimore is a major city and major market for a lot of bigger bands and national acts, and there's been people over the years that, have done the same thing as me, but, things happen. Either they have a family or job obligations, or they just get burnt out and just step away from the scene and step away from booking. So I started doing it at a time where, it just got really stagnant. There were some awesome bands, but not too many people, like, being able to throw on shows for underground touring acts coming through. And I've had a lot of promoters kind of take me under their wing, people like Adam Savage, just reaching out to me, seeing if I wanted to help them, or reaching out to them if, I needed help with something. Travis from Sidebar was very integral in some of the first shows I started booking in Baltimore. So just, people who share the same vision, getting together and, trying to make shit happen. That's pretty much how it spiraled off.
Right on. Was MDF still going on back then?
Yeah, MDF was still going on, and there was, like, of course, like, some shows that would happen alongside MDF, or there'd be bands that, would just need another show, or I know they've worked with Sidebar a lot on doing shows, like, while the fest is going on, just, like, small little showcases. Yeah, so a lot of people knew Baltimore because MDF would happen every year at Sonar, but yeah, I don't think a lot of outside of that people really knew of like underground scene in Baltimore outside of the fest.
Yeah, like every year at MDF. Well, of course, not this year, but every year at MDF, I look forward to maybe a few bands trying to tour south and trying to get my hands on those guys. Like,
yeah, and I mean, a lot of bands will come out of their way just to play MDF, and if they need to make some money on their way back home or on their way to the fest, like, why not try to see if they want to play another show?
Oh, for sure, definitely. You do all kinds of genres: grind, black metal, death metal, hardcore, punk, post-punk, sludge, doom, and like even like mixed bills. What's your favorite type to book?
I mean, again, like I really got into metal because of like thrash and death metal. I haven't been booking a lot of thrash shows, but death metal has definitely stuck with me. That's something I really enjoy. So I'd say I try to book as many death metal shows that I can because I enjoy the genre. There's a lot of great bands out there. So I really love when I get to book a death metal show, and especially these past few years, I'd say there's been a resurgence of death metal. Like a band like Fetid, if I booked them maybe 6 years ago, there probably would have been like 10 or 15 people there. Now, if I book them, they'll like pack the room. So it's really cool to see something that I've enjoyed for a while kind of, have people be stoked about it. Because for the longest time, and I guess still, like, black metal is still like a really popular genre with an extreme metal. Like you would get a lot of people coming out to like just your run of the mill black metal show, and when it came to like death metal and grind, it would go either way. Like people would be stoked about it or people would be whatever. But I feel within the past few years, like people have been really stoked about death metal and grind shows.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of demo, like, didn't you get to book them?
I didn't, but I know that. So the guys who run MDF brought them over for some shows, and I think the last time Demolich came over it was with Blood Incantation and Artificial Brain, both excellent bands. So that was a sick bill. So I definitely tried to see as many of those shows as I could. I think I went to the Philly one, the Baltimore one, and then I went to the Richmond one at Strange Matter, which I think might have been the last Strange Matter show I've been to.
Yeah, it's really upsetting that they closed. Yeah, I don't know why I just assumed that you booked that.
No, I mean, I love Demolich. I try to see them as much as I can, and I was really looking forward to the tour they were going to do next month, but because of the pandemic, a lot of tours have been canceled, and of course theirs got canceled as well.
So, would you say that you were touching on, like, black metal and death metal, would you say that those crowds in Baltimore or DC, like, cross genres a lot?
Yeah, I mean, I'll see a lot of the same folks that come to, like, just straight up black metal shows, come to death metal shows. There definitely is a crossover. And like I said, I've especially noticed it more over the years. I'll see a lot of younger kids and new faces come out to some of these death metal shows and grind shows, which is really nice. But yeah, there definitely seems to be a crossover amongst the crowd. Like people just hear heavy shit no matter what.
It's always awesome to see young faces at a show. It's kind of brings life into the scene, and you know that the genre's not getting stale, you know?
Oh, totally. And I mean, I think there's a lot of people that do some like gatekeeping, or, you know, they're too cool to try to like spread out, you know, that there's a show going on or these bands exist. So it's really cool to see young people come out to shows and be stoked about it because, you know, they're going to carry on the torch. They're going to start a band. They're going to start booking shows. So you might as well, like, you know, welcome them with open arms and, you know, don't be a dick.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So what are a few of your personal favorite booking experiences over the years?
Oh, man. I mean, it's been really awesome to book bands that I really love and admire, like bands like Voivod, Evokin, The Chameleons, Despise You. It was really cool booking Gorguts, and it was really awesome. Speaking of MDF, I got to book the band Dercada one year because it just so happened that all the members were just going to be at the fest. And I had a friend get me in contact with them, and they really wanted to play out more, and they were all there at one place. So I hooked up a show for them at Sidebar one year while MDF was going on, and yeah, it was great. They had a great time, and that's a legendary band that I never thought I would get to book or see live.
Hell yeah, dude, that's so sick.
But yeah, getting to book a lot of my favorite bands, I definitely have like a bucket list of bands that I'd like to book, and There are bands that I never thought I'd imagine see live, or so that's been really cool doing that on a more like personal and kind of selfish level.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. Like one of my highest points was I think you actually sent me the show was Tomb Mold, and getting to see them and watching their drummer singer just go off. I mean, that was probably like a high point for me as a promoter.
Hell yeah. Great band. Those guys worked hard, and I think that was their first U.S. tour, and look at them now. Like they're definitely sick. They've worked hard. They're good dudes, really humble.
And it seems like they put out a full-length album every year, which is crazy.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what those guys have up their sleeve next.
Yeah. So, without naming names, if you don't want to, what was a negative experience you've had that stuck with you?
I mean, thankfully, I haven't had too many negative experiences. I mean, there have been times where I've had shows where some bands weren't happy about the turnout, or they just weren't really appreciative to have a show. Like, for instance, I remember doing this show in Baltimore a couple years ago, and there was this touring act from New York, this punk band that needed a show the same night in Baltimore, and I just let them hop on. It was a nice thing to do, and a friend of mine got me in touch with them, so I just saw it as, helping out this band and also doing something nice for my friend as well, helping their friends out.
Yeah. And
it wasn't a good turnout. It was a weeknight, and they just weren't happy with the show, which I didn't understand. The fact that, I let you guys hop on this show. You should be grateful that you have a show to play and not a day off. And I don't know. I'm not going to name any names, but they were just jerks about it, and that's kind of stuck with me. Another time is, I guess, the venue just didn't really communicate the set times and curfews with me. So there was a time where I had a show, and one of the local bands, I had to tell them, like, hey, you guys aren't going to be able to play because we need to wrap this show up. And I felt really bad. They already loaded in. They were set up, prepared to play, and that was my fault. I still tried to make amends. I still paid them for, everything, and I made sure to put them on another show, which I thought would be really sick for them. That would have, great turnout and everything. But these things happen. A lot of times, especially with booking, it's a learning process. You learn from every show that you do, like, oh, I could have done this better, this. So it was early on when I started booking shows, and that's definitely stuck with me, like trying to make sure I have set times right, and I communicate with the venue and bands properly about set times, and making sure everyone has a fair chance to play and, gets to play a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah, that's definitely, it's a learning experience, and some stuff is, is out of your control, but you just try to, learn from it, except, when bands get an attitude, or when they got rock star attitudes about, like you were saying, setting up a show like the same day in advance, or bitching about the turnout. That kind of like makes me completely write them off, and it sucks dealing with those kind of people.
Yeah, and booking shows and promoting it's a thankless job. I don't make any money doing this, nor that's not the intention to. It's just out of love and passion for the music and trying to help people out. So yeah, it really sucks, especially when an underground band wants to act like a rock star and throw a hissy fit.
Now when they bitch about the turnout on a weekday or something, I'll be like, oh man, I guess not that many people have heard of you.
Yeah, seriously. I did my part. You guys got to do yours.
So, what are some of your go-to local acts?
Thankfully there's a lot of great bands in this area. A lot of great homies that play in bands. I always like working with bands like Ilsa, Tomb Warden, Perpetuated, bands like Needle. Those are just some bands that are within the DC, Maryland area. But yeah, Nova and Richmond and other parts of Virginia, also some great bands. But yeah, it's really awesome to work with, especially your friends who play in sick bands and, bands that you respect in the area that, are on top of their shit and you can count on and are professional.
Hell yeah. Like, for me, I try to get Left Cross whenever possible because they're just so tight and like the nicest dudes, and they play like just like a mammoth band, like, you know what I mean? Like, they're just so tight and down to earth and cool, and whenever I can get them for a show, I always try to put them on.
No, they're great, easy to work with. That's always great working with local bands that, are just stoked to play the show, try to make the show happen and make it happen as smoothly as possible. That's always nice.
So sometimes stuff doesn't always go as smoothly. What was the craziest thing that you've seen go down at a gig you promoted?
Over the years, I've seen shit like, people getting really drunk and rowdy at a show and, having to like either escort them out or like try to pull them out of the crowd and be like, yo, you need to chill, or maybe you should just drink water right now and sit down. And so there's been that. Thankfully, nothing too terrible. Sometimes, you get some like sketch balls at shows. So that's not welcomed at any of my shows. Yeah. So there are those, but thankfully nothing too ridiculous or to a point where it gets too violent or crazy.
Yeah, I think.
But that'll happen if alcohol is in the mix.
Oh yeah,
people are raging hard, getting excited. Shit happens.
Yeah, I think one of the craziest things that I've ever seen was that band Eat the Turnbuckle.
Yes.
one of the very first shows that I ever went to at Riff House. The first thing that I saw was a guy with a broken arm and his bone was poking out of his arm, and he's just waving it around, drunk as shit, and it's just flopping like holy fuck, this is awesome. Like,
yeah, a band like that, I think a lot of people, if they're familiar with that band, they know what they're getting into. But that is wild. That's ridiculous.
So who are or were the best music venues do you like to work with?
Of course, I always love working with Atlas Brewworks. The staff is super accommodating, super chill. It's a great space. They're just, it's just super easy for the bands. When Night Hag played there, I'm sure you can attest to having load in right there at the delivery bay, the stage right there, getting really awesome beers and food courtesy of Fred. It's always a good time setting up shows. They make it super easy. They're super accommodating. I'd also say Metro Gallery in Baltimore, great venue, great staff, great atmosphere. They're also super accommodating and super chill. Auto Bar, and of course Sidebar as well. Sidebar was the last spot that I actually put on my show before the pandemic, and I put on 2 shows there the same weekend, and it was super easy, super chill. Staff was awesome. Everyone had a good time, and those are some really awesome venues to work with. Songbird in DC, I've only done 2 shows there so far, but they've been great. We're pretty lucky to have those venues in the DC, Baltimore area.
Yeah, definitely. They are totally the backbone of the scene, and Atlas was fucking awesome. I had so many beers there, and the load-in was super convenient, just like right there. They opened the bay door for you, and that was such an awesome show. Like, Begrime Exemius. I'm sorry sorry, Derek, if I'm saying that wrong, but they were so fucking awesome, and I feel like that area that you play in with just the lights and the sound and that, and like with the vats in the background was just like such the perfect atmosphere, for a death metal show.
And, sometimes you'll have bands, that will load in and see the stage and see the setup and be kind of like weirded out or be like, okay, so the show's in here. And after the show, they're like, oh man, that was fucking awesome. Yeah. It sounded great. Everyone was super chill. Like this was a great time. So yeah, I definitely understand one. But the thing is with DC, especially the legit mid-sized venues here just either won't work with outside promoters or they don't think people are going to come out for an underground metal or punk show. So, thankfully places like Atlas have been like super awesome in embracing the metal scene and punk scene here and letting us put on cool shit.
Yeah, they really are a treasure. So what are your favorite releases of the past year or maybe 2 years?
Oh, man. Lately, I've been really listening to a lot of that, the latest Black Curse album, Endless Wound, that just came out. That's, like, the perfect combination of, like, I don't know, it sounds like that German black metal band Catharsis meets, like, Swallowed. It's kind of all over the place, but I love it. I love that style. And, yeah, I've been listening to that album constantly.
Yeah, I've been jamming that one a lot. Isn't that some members of Blood Incantation too?
Yeah, it's even though a lot of people hate that word supergroup, it definitely is like a who's who of like the Denver scene. It's Eli from Spectral Voice doing vocals and guitar, the drummer from Chemist, I think the bass player from Primitive Man, and yeah, the Morris, the guitar player from Blood Incantation and Spectral Voice. So yeah, it's definitely a solid crew of people, and yeah, that album that's probably my favorite metal album of 2020 thus far.
Fuck yes, yeah, same here. That's been on my constant rotation, and I didn't even know all those people were in it. I just read it was like Spectral Voice, Blood Incantation members, but yeah, all those bands fucking rule. It's no wonder that, they put out something like that.
Yeah, I just hope whenever the pandemic clears up, they come to the East Coast. I would love to see that band perform live.
Yeah, I'm hoping that at some point I get to see Caustic Wound or Internal Rot, because those are probably my favorites, along with Black Curse.
Yeah, those two albums as well. I've been listening to those constantly.
So, speaking of the pandemic, how many tours have you had to cancel, and what were they?
So officially, I've already had to cancel the Blood-Soaked Necrovoid and Astro Furious tour. Both bands are from Costa Rica. It would have been their first time playing in the States.
Man.
Really sick bands. Astro Furious just put out EP a couple months back through Misako and Unoho Records, and I think they're gearing up to put out a full length. Blood-Soaked Necrovoid has an album coming out through Iron Bonehead. Both really sick death metal bands, and I actually had a chance to see Astro Furious when I was in Mexico. They played Total Death Over Mexico. And yeah, they were fucking amazing, and it's really a bummer that the tour that they were going to do next month in the States, we had to cancel that. But as soon as this clears up, I'm definitely going to be working with them on trying to bring them back. Another tour that I had to cancel was Mortal Wound, Command, and Ritual Mass. They were going to come through because both Mortal Wound and Command were going to play the Steel and Bone Fest in May. And we had some dates set up for Mortal Wound, Command, and Ritual Mass to play around the fest. And like I said, hopefully once this clears up, we'll be working on rescheduling those. I have some other ones that I haven't been able to announce because of the pandemic. But yeah, I'll be letting people know that, hey, this had to be canceled, but hopefully in a few months we can maybe possibly reschedule these. So be on the lookout and try to support these bands by buying merch or their albums or doing something to help them out because they had to cancel these tours.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think everybody in the music field is feeling it right now. And I'm totally glad that Total Death Over Mexico went off. That might have been the last major fest to happen before the everything started shutting down.
Yeah, no, it was definitely a trip. Me and my buddies got there, and then like 3 days into Mexico, in our time in Mexico, even before the fest, shit really, started going south in terms of the pandemic and lockdown in the States. So hearing what was going on in the States was a trip, and yeah, talking with a bunch of bands from the U.S. that were at the fest. It was, a lot of bands had to cancel. Demolish had to cancel. Necros Christos, a lot of European bands because of the travel ban.
Yeah.
They weren't able to fly into the States and then fly into Mexico. So it was definitely a weird time, but yeah, looking back on it, those were probably the last shows I'm going to see for a while.
Yeah, I know, man. Well, I'm glad you got to. Were you worried about getting home, or?
Yeah, that was definitely a concern. Me and my friends were debating whether or not we should fly home early, but we got home all right. We had quite the wait at JFK in New York, and I know a lot of bands had some issues like staying at the airports for a long time. But yeah, thankfully we got home safe, and yeah, now we've just been, quarantining, trying to keep busy and trying to stay safe and sane.
Yeah, I definitely hear that. I hear you are working on a tape label with Tommy Wall, who we just interviewed recently. What can you tell me about it?
Yeah, Tommy and I, and also Matt Scott, we've kind of been just, discussing the idea of doing like a small tape label of bands that we really admire, either locally, like a lot of great, like Maryland, DC bands from back in the day that, just didn't really blow up or a lot of people don't know about. Just doing a small run of tape presses because we certainly have the time to press the tapes at home and dub the tapes. So we've been mulling over that, just really like a small press of like different releases of bands that we admire, demos or albums. But we're putting that on hold for a little bit because of what's possibly going to happen to the United States Postal Service. Mm-hmm. Because if the Postal Service does become privatized, shipping a tape is going to go from being like $4 to like $20. So
yeah,
kind of want to make sure that we don't set up this tape label and have all these tapes and then have to be paying out of the ass for shipping.
Yeah, not making any money or making your money back.
Yeah, so we're kind of waiting it out to see what happens. But yeah, we've been kind of mulling it over. It's cheap. Tapes are so cheap to make. You could dub them at home if you have a tape duplicator and printing out the inserts, and I don't know, maybe doing something cool like asking one of our friends who screen prints to do like T-shirts to go alongside the tape releases.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, tapes are a good option for a lot of bands because they're so inexpensive, and a lot of people wouldn't be able to get their music out there if it wasn't for tapes. And I have myself like a giant tape collection just of like newer grindcore bands, and like I think I have like a whole rack just set aside for like grind and death metal bands. So it's definitely something we use in the underground a lot. It'll suck if the postage goes way up.
Yeah, and I mean that's what I want to urge a lot of people listening. Like, everyone knows about how venues and bands are being affected, but if this shit with the Postal Service happens, you could say goodbye to a lot of distros and record labels, and everyone within the scene is going to be affected.
Yeah, hopefully not. Hopefully things return to normal. And
yeah.
When they do, what are some gigs you hope to do or redo?
And right now I'm really hoping that the shows that I have set up for the summer, hopefully if things turn around, I would love for the Pissgrave and Undergang show to happen. If it does have to be rescheduled, I get it. It's for the best. But that's one show I'm really looking forward to. I love both bands, and I've worked with Undergang before. David is really awesome, and it's really cool to be able to work with them. And there's that band Mephitic Corpse, who we're going to be on the run with them.
Yes.
They just put out a really sick demo, so I urge anyone that really loves like old school, like dirty grind death metal. Check Mephitic Corpse out. They're a 3-piece from California. Really sick shit. But yeah, that Pissgrave Undergang show, I really hope, this is really being like really optimistic, but the Ascended Dead show that I have planned in June, it'd be nice if that happened. There's a tour that I'm working on for Witch Vomit that I would like to see happen. It's currently planned for like late July. So we'll see what happens, but I would love for that to happen because that band's sick, and I know a lot of people will be stoked about it, seeing them on the East Coast.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, like, that Mephitic Corpse Undergang Pissgrave show was one of my most, like, highly anticipated shows of the... I was even looking forward to that more than MDF because I don't even think at this point I could have gone to MDF, but I really hope that still goes on because all three of those bands, it was like, you ever seen that Vince McMahon meme where he just like keeps going back, going back, like he keeps leaning back in his chair? That was me. Yeah. That was me every time you announced a band on that show. No, but go ahead with what you were saying.
There's some shows that I have in the summer that I'm trying to stay optimistic and hope that, possibly things turn around and they could happen. The fall is looking really great. There's some sick bands. And, during this time, I'm just trying to keep tabs of things that I need to reschedule. Like, I really still want Morpheus Descends to come through to DC. I have to cancel that show.
Yeah.
Just kind of wait and see what happens. But, there's when things are normal, make no mistake, there's going to be a ton of sick shows that I have up my sleeve, a lot of sick stuff that I want to bring through the East Coast.
I feel like when we can finally safely have shows again, a lot of people that took it for granted are going to be coming out in droves.
Yeah, no, I've already had a few people like just message me or tell me like, the first show that happens, I'm going to be there. I don't even care what it is. A lot of people are just going either, they're having cabin fever, going stir crazy.
Yeah.
And you just don't think about it. A lot of times you take these things for granted. So I know a lot of people are going to be stoked once shows are a thing.
Yeah. I probably never thought in the past 5 or 6 years, what if the entire show industry shuts down? That's just not something that ever crossed my mind.
I think for a lot of people, and I'm just really thankful that a lot of bands are still churning out music, and I'm really excited to kind of see what comes out of after this pandemic and after hopefully everything clears up. I know a lot of bands are working on music or just gearing up to, try to play out as much as they can once this is all gone.
Yeah, I think we're gonna hear a lot of good bedroom black metal coming out. So what have you been doing to stay busy during this time where everything's shut down?
Man, mostly, I'm lucky enough to I'm able to work from home, so just doing that and then trying to keep myself busy by either listening to music or reading or binge watching Westworld or Better Call Saul or just watching a bunch of shitty like B movies mostly.
Yeah. I actually just started Better Call Saul. That show is really awesome. I'm still in the first season, so don't tell me nothing, but oh my God.
No worries. No, I'm like almost I'm like midway, third season. Great show. I love Breaking Bad, so it's awesome to see kind of a continuation of that.
I haven't even seen all of Breaking Bad. I just started watching Better Call Saul, and I didn't even know that they were related. But luckily it kind of stands on its own.
Yeah, no, it totally does. But just doing the usual things I would do if I'm stuck at home: records, weed, books, bad movies, bad TV.
Fuck yeah. Last question. What song would you like to see Puddle of Mud cover next?
Oh, fuck, man. Shit. We're talking like any song, or are we going for like a specific genre?
Any song of any genre.
Oh, man. Man, it would actually be really wild to see Puddle of Mud cover a Mortician song.
Oh, man. Could you imagine the faces he would make?
As long as he's wearing shades
Yeah.
and has like facial hair, I think it would be awesome.
Yeah. I was thinking how hilarious it would be for him to cover anything Alice in Chains where there's like a really high note, like especially off Jar of Flies where it's all acoustic. I would just...
Puddle of Mud kind of goes for like early 90s, like Puddle of Mud, Soundgarden. So I wouldn't be surprised if they go for something like that. But I don't know, man. Maybe you should hit them up with a meme, a Mortician meme, and be like, yo, you guys need to cover Mortician.
God, man, we could make it happen. I'll tell you what.
You guys could.
With the power of memes, we could do it.
Oh, totally.
Well, that's it for today. Thank you again, Hasan, for being on the show.
Hey, thank you, man. You take care. Stay safe. Stay sane.
Yeah, man. Well, promoters like you keep the underground alive, and it's great to hear your point of view on things. If you guys are listening to this, follow Ripping Headaches on Facebook and social media. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Subterranean Annihilation, for music and interviews. Thanks for listening.
Cheers, man.